Okay, we've got a real story for you guys today. So don't forget to subscribe if you happen to enjoy this type of content. Let's get into it. So, we're going to be talking about Expedition 33 and the controversy surrounding the fact that it lost the awards that it won at the Indie Game Awards, which is apparently a different thing from the Game Awards for anybody that was unaware. And it all stems due to a problem with the game using generative AI in the final product that apparently was against the rules, and it was also not disclosed allegedly beforehand. So this has been talked about by a lot of people, but there's been a lot of stuff going on. Oh, we want to, yeah, whatever. So there's a lot of different articles that I've got pulled up on here for this here. Let's see if we can go to Kotaku because I guess The Verge is being a jerk about it. And essentially, what this boils down to is that the Indie Game Awards, of course, had their little thing where like you can't use AI to be eligible for the awards, and they apparently didn't disclose that they had used AI. Now the thing is, they only admitted to it on the day of the awards, and at that point, they still gave it the award, but then later retracted it, which was kind of interesting. But I guess maybe they considered it was too late to make changes to the actual award ceremony at that point. So my boy Blue Prince, which is an amazing game, it is probably the best game in the style of Myst, those exploration puzzle games that have all kinds of like weird shit going on and you have to figure it out. It's probably the best in that genre I've personally have played. I'm not even a big fan of that genre, but I just absolutely love Blueprints and I highly recommend it. But it ended up getting the award. And then the debut game award went to Sorry We're Closed, which is actually given away for free on the Epic Game Store yesterday, I do believe, as part of their like whole thing. But what this boiled down to essentially is, well, this is apparently from what we know, because who knows, maybe the game used more than just this. But at the very beginning of the game, when you're in, fuck, I forget the name of the town that you start off at the very beginning of the game, right? Where it's all the French people and they're doing the gommage and all that good stuff. So there are some various polls and whatnot that have newspaper articles, sometimes with like different captions or some images or whatever. Those were apparently AI generated. Now, this was apparently patched out afterwards and changed after the initial launch version of the game. They, from what I understand, use these AI assets as placeholders and apparently didn't patch out all the placeholder assets prior to launching the game. They, obviously did a lot of it, but they didn't do all of it. And so I guess they were judging it based on the final product that we had here. And it does seem a little harsh, to be honest, that they lost the award over something that small. But I mean, the rules are the rules at the same time, I guess. Who knows? Maybe in the future years, they might revise those rules to where as long as the game has any AI assets patched out by the eligibility period for the awards ceremony, that it could still qualify. I think that would have probably been a good compromise in this particular situation. But yeah, it's just absolutely insane because, like AI is here. It's the Pandora's box has been opened and we're not going to be able to put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. And even if we have this AI bubble crash that's going to cause a lot of issues with companies like Nvidia, it's still going to be around. Think about the dot com bubble that we had in the early 2000s, because a lot of these companies were betting big on the internet. And, it turns out the internet is a really big thing. I wouldn't be talking to you right now without the internet being a big thing. Millions of people on YouTube and TikTok, Instagram, and so on, they wouldn't be able to talk to you in this fashion without the success of the internet and the infrastructure that was built out over decades. So, AI is going to be around. And really, the question is, how do we actually handle that moral quandary? Now, that's not the only kind of thing we're going to be talking about here, because Larian Studios is also in some hot water for AI related stuff. This time for Divinity, which they had the unveiling of the new Divinity game at the Game Awards, and it was absolutely one of the most crazy trailers I've ever seen for a video game. It was so like just so like diabolical, honestly. I'd highly recommend you check it out, but probably trigger warning for any of those folks that get squeamish or whatever, because they show some stuff in that trailer. They really do show some stuff. And of course, the head of the Divinity developer, Larian Studios, is saying that they're going to be using generative AI as well for the development of the game. Now, they're wanting to use this as a tool, which is what it really should be used for. Like any kind of artist is going to be accepting of any kind of tools that makes things easier on their lives, that speeds things up, and so on. And so I totally can respect something like that. But we do know a lot of companies out there aren't going to just be using it as a tool. They're going to be using it as a crutch. They're going to be using it like how the people that have made Black Ops 7, over at Treyarch and all the other developers going on, where they're apparently using AI for all kinds of garbage in Black Ops 7. And it kind of shows, given the low quality of the game, because AI isn't quite there yet. Let's be real. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a wild time that we've got this going on. But like they say, it's here to stay. Unfortunately, for people that are against it. I'm not a fan of this, honestly, but I mean, we have to ask ourselves how it's going to be used rather than if it's going to be used, because that second question, if it's going to be used, that's too late. That's going to be a definitive yes. It is definitely going to be used. Some are going to use it more than others, of course, but it is something that practically every gaming company is going to be using in some fashion or form. A lot of indie studios are going to be using it too, especially when they could use these kinds of tools to help get more of a competitive edge against the big companies that have a lot larger budgets, a lot bigger teams, and so on. So that is something that we have to consider. Now, a lot of people were kind of crapping on, I guess, what was his name? Swin? I think that's what it was. Yeah, Swin Vinke. I mean, it's Larian's like a Eastern European studio, I think, or something like that. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong about that. But yeah, that would explain the kind of weird name for a lowly American like myself. And of course, we've got another European guy that kind of came to the defense of Swin, of course, and that is, of course, Daniel Vavra, who, of course, is the head of the Warhorse Studios, which made Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2, which, another fantastic game. We've got some of the top-notch talent in the industry between Sandfall Interactive, Larian Studios, and Warhorse Studios, which doesn't seem like they used it specifically for Kingdom Come, but they did use AI apparently to upscale some assets related to the UI, which kind of makes sense, I suppose, because they're using a 2D AI, UI, and when you consider like you have to make a UI for all kinds of different resolutions, 1080p, 1440p, 4K, lower resolutions like 720p or something like 800p, like the Steam Deck uses. You want to make sure that the UI looks favorable in several resolutions, so I can see why they would use it for something like that. At the same time, it can be upsetting for anybody that says that. Of course, he says, I'm no fan of AI generated art, but anyways, time to face reality. AI is here to stay with us, as frightening as it may be. That's the way it is. Personally, it scares me the most in music because you can't even recognize AI there anymore. And he's actually dead right about that. Because, I mean, there has been a lot of AI music, the Suno AI or whatever that people can make songs with, and you can generally tell right away. Um, and I have been able to. Now, here's one that I haven't been able to tell right away. This is a Japanese metal band called Neon Oni. And this song right here, Satori Sadai, which I should have got the hint based on where it says AI and the I is in lowercase. I don't know. I didn't really think about it at the time, but the song sounded like a straight up banger. It sounded like something that definitely fit my musical taste. And they had, a couple other songs like that was like definitely the strongest one, but they had a couple other songs on there that I really appreciated. And I never really got the sense that it sounded like something generated from AI. But lo and behold, it is. This is, well, technically it's a real band now because apparently the person that made this AI generated stuff actually put together a real band, which includes some people from other bands to perform live, which that's how they have a live stream that they did of them performing live, I guess, some of the songs. So it's kind of a weird catch 22 that they're using AI to actually make something that's real, but it started off fake, which is such a mind blowing thing. At the same time, it's so crazy that something like that can happen. But we're basically here at this point. Now, there's gonna be plenty of slop out there that you're gonna be able to tell right away. That's probably gonna be from people that are using inferior AI products that aren't as refined as some of the others, and also people that maybe don't really do a good job with creating like creative prompts for the AI to kind of refine the work and whatnot. Clearly, the person that did the work behind Neon Oni, um, they're a little bit more talented at using these AI music tools than some of the other folks out there. Um, but yeah, I really don't know what to say about this, guys. I'm really disappointed, but I mean, what can you really do at this point? It's here to stay now, and I'm my main thing is that I don't want to see it used in a way where it's going to replace labor. I want it to be a tool. Um, when I mean something like that, I'm thinking like a tool like somebody that used to dig by hand and then they have a shovel, right? Obviously, you can dig more dirt with a shovel than you can by hand. That's just it's just a basic fact. Um, you still needed people to use those shovels in order to dig that dirt. And of course, we got into a lot crazier technology, of course, like backhoes and things like that. That sure you could dig a lot more dirt than you used to be able to. Um, and that's kind of like where it's going to be. But eventually, we're going to have automated robots that are able to operate these backhoes. I mean, the backhoe will essentially be a robot, fully autonomous. And, at that point, there's not going to be any real labor involved because they're going to have robots to do repairs on the machinery if the machinery fails. Like it's getting to a point potentially where we're cutting the human out of the equation. And that's not something I want to see. But should they use tools like this to help make games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, games like Baldur's Gate, Divinity, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, given how high quality, how creative these games are, if it helps them make those games, I mean, who are we to judge on that? Because we want good games, right? And you've seen how most of the industry is nowadays. And these are some examples of games that are actually like high budget games that have actually slapped, because for the most part, it's been indie games. But we still have a few good ones out there. So I just wanted to rant about this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do not forget to check the video right above me. That's the one I most recently did. And if you check the other corner, the algorithm will send something to you, that fancy AI that Google has. And don't forget to subscribe over on the left lower corner. But that's going to be the last line.